All right, so for the better part of a decade now, we've all been fighting this huge war on fake news. But here's a crazy thought. What if the very tools we've built for this fight are actually making everything worse?
I mean, what if our obsession with sorting every single piece of information into a true or false box has totally backfired? What if it's created brand new ways for people to deceive us and made finding the actual truth even harder? That is a massive question, and in this explainer, we're going to dig right into it.
You know how it is. We've all been trained to see the world in these really simple terms. You're scrolling your feed, and what are you looking for? That little green check mark, right? The stamp of approval that tells you, okay, this is real, you can believe this.
And of course, we've been trained to spot the opposite, that big, scary red X. This is the enemy. This is the lie that we're supposed to be fighting against.
But then, things started to get a little more complicated. Platforms began adding these shades of gray. Labels trying to add some kind of nuance to a system that was already starting to crack under the pressure.
But here's the thing. For a lot of people, all these labels, true, false, misleading, they all start to feel the same. It just feels like someone somewhere is making the decision for them. And that has turned our entire information space into a total minefield.
And that right there brings us to the core problem we're talking about today, the true/false trap. The whole idea that all information can be neatly sorted into these two little buckets. It's not just wrong, it's actually dangerously flawed.
Okay, so what's really interesting here is that the experts, the people who study this stuff for a living, they use a much more nuanced framework. They call it information disorder, and they break it down based on two key questions. Is it false, and is there an intent to harm? So you have misinformation, which is false but shared by mistake, like your uncle sharing something he thinks is real. Then there's disinformation. That's a deliberate lie specifically designed to cause damage. But then there's the third category, and this is where it gets really tricky.
And this is the one that just completely breaks our binary system, malinformation. This is stuff that is factually true, but it's been weaponized. Think about private emails being leaked, or hate speech that uses real statistics completely out of context. You can't fact-check it and label it false, because, well, it isn't. And this is where the entire system just collapses.
So, with that in mind, let's look at a real-world case where a platform tried to manage this kind of weaponized truth, and it went spectacularly wrong.
So, back in 2021, the super prestigious British Medical Journal publishes this peer-reviewed investigation into a contractor working for Pfizer. Totally factual, solid reporting, but when people started sharing it on Facebook, boom, it gets slapped with a missing context label. Now why? Because the fact-checkers weren't actually judging the article itself. Nope, they were judging how they thought anti-vaccine activists might misinterpret it. The BMJ was, understandably, furious. They accused Facebook of censoring legitimate scientific discourse. And this just perfectly illustrates the trap, right? A true story was penalized not for what it said, but for a potential narrative that someone else might create from it.
This whole situation leads us to what is maybe the most dangerous side effect of our obsession with fake news. It's a concept called the liar's dividend, and it's how the bad guys are now using our own skepticism against us.
It works like this. Because we're all so aware of things like deepfakes and misinformation, liars now have this incredible new escape hatch. Anytime real, damaging evidence comes out about them, they can just stand up and shout, "Fake news," or "That's an AI deepfake," and create just enough doubt to totally paralyze the conversation.
And look, this isn't some abstract theory anymore. It has become an explicit political strategy. When a video surfaced that seemed to show items being thrown from a White House window, Donald Trump openly told reporters, and I'm quoting here, "If something happens that's really bad, maybe I'll have to just blame AI." I mean, the quiet part is now being said right out loud.
And the terrifying thing is, it works. A major study from Yale University found that when a politician gets caught in a scandal, their support actually goes up more if they claim it's misinformation than if they apologize or even just stay silent. The data is crystal clear. Crying fake news is literally the most effective damage control strategy they have.
So, okay, if the old question, is this true, is broken, what's the replacement? Well, the path forward seems to be about asking better questions. It's about shifting from looking for a binary verdict to focusing on two other things. Where did this come from, and who actually agrees on it?
Let's start with that first new approach, finding consensus, instead of just relying on some top-down authority to tell us all what's true. A really fascinating example of this is Community Notes on X. It's not just a simple majority vote. A note only gets displayed if people who historically disagree on other topics both rate that note as helpful. This bridging algorithm, as they call it, is specifically designed to find common ground, not just reward whichever side is shouting the loudest.
And the results? They're pretty powerful. A study from the University of Rochester found that users are 32% more likely to actually delete their own misleading posts when they get corrected by a peer-based community note. Turns out, being corrected by us feels a whole lot different than being censored by them.
All right, so the second part of this new playbook shifts our focus entirely. Instead of asking, is this content true, we start asking, where did this content come from? It's all about something called provenance.
And the technology that makes this possible is called C2PA, or Content Credentials. Now, the easiest way to think of it is like a secure, cryptographic nutrition label for photos and videos. It doesn't tell you if the content is good or bad, but it does tell you all the ingredients. So this label can tell you, for example, that an image was created by a Nikon Z9 camera, or that it was edited in Photoshop and specifically that the contrast was adjusted, or it could tell you that it was generated entirely by an AI like Midjourney. It gives us, the users, the power to judge the source for ourselves, instead of just waiting for a platform to give us a verdict. It anchors content back to a verifiable reality.
So where does all of this leave us? The big idea here is this. We don't need to give up on the concept of truth itself. What we do need to give up on is the idea that truth can be managed and administered with a simple, binary, true or false checkbox.
So what should you take away from all this? How do we navigate this new reality? First, we have to start thinking in terms of probabilities and context, not just simple verdicts. Second, we need to prioritize things that show consensus, what brings people together, rather than just raw engagement. And finally, and maybe most importantly, we have to shift our focus from judging the content to verifying its source.
And this leaves us with one last big, provocative question. Our decade-long quest to label everything true or false has fueled so much division and has given liars powerful new weapons. So maybe, just maybe, to save the truth, we first have to stop trying to force it into a checkbox.